Welcome back, or welcome if you're just joining us. It's the France 24 debate. At one time, he was Deputy Prime Minister of Russia. He then became a charismatic, outspoken figure in the opposition. Boris Nemtsov shot dead just across from the Kremlin on a bridge. It's right near the central high hall of power in Moscow Friday night. The Russian authorities have vowed to do what it takes to try to catch him. We're talking about it with, from Moscow, social activist and e-business consultant Aliona Popova here in the studio. We're in the company of Anne Livat, who knew Boris Nemtsov and who covered Russia for 10 years. Also with Michel Grabar of the Russian Forum in France, and France 24's Douglas Herbert. Just before the break, Aliona Popova saying that this talk that's going on in Moscow, that it wasn't a professional hit, that's wrong. Of course, the person who did it had the confidence to go and do it in this highly sensitive area and make a clean getaway.
So, as you know, there are many theories, and we don't know now who killed him and who gave the order. But if we compare to what happened to Politkovskaya or to Pavel Khlebnikov was killed by Berezovsky, and the American journalist, because he wrote a book on Berezovsky.
And who killed Politkovskaya?
And who killed Chechen? It's somebody from Chechnya.
Chechens.
And who killed Berezovsky?
And who killed Berezovsky? We don't know.
And who killed Litvinenko?
Litvinenko, we know, but we know. But who killed Berezovsky? It's a real question.
We could keep going on with this. I mean,
Yeah.
the point is that, right? You could just keep going.
Yes.
Who killed?
Yes,
who killed?
that's very important. That it's risky to be in politics in Russia. It's a risky business, and that is frightening. That the human life is not.
All right, I'll put the question differently. Who had an interest in having Boris Nemtsov dead when we've said in part one of our discussion how the Russian opposition, well, it's circumcised to a small group now with...
You understand that from the point of view of the Kremlin, it was not in their interest to kill Nemtsov now, let's say, because he was not very dangerous. The Liberal Party is very weak. So to kill him is worse than having him alive. So, but maybe he could have become a real leader of the opposition. That's also my theory. So he could have become a dangerous leader potentially, but now he was not dangerous. So my point of view is that probably the extremists killed him, but we must figure out who they were and who gave the order to kill him.
On Twitter, Ibrahim saying Putin is not behind the killing. Those who are interested in seeing Russia destabilized are responsible for the murder. And it's true, we love conspiracy theories, Anne Livat, but who's to say that the Kremlin...
I'm totally against conspiracy theories, so I'm not going to talk about this. But I am quite surprised also by the timing of the killing. I don't know why it happened the day on Friday evening, but I think it has the person who did it or who ordered to do it had two things in mind. The first thing was to totally scare the opposition, what remains of the opposition, even if this opposition was weak, as Doug told us. Even Kasyanov says it's weak. Even
the former prime minister.
Exactly, and Nemtsov himself. We had talks at length about that, about the weakness of the opposition. Yeah. Nevertheless, he would relentlessly keep going on trying, to express the opinion of the opposition. But so the first result is that the opposition, the weakened opposition, is scared and devastated, even more destroyed. And the second thing, it might be that it was done in order to show to those potential individuals, political leaders who would want to go to the opposition, a sign to show to them that if they do it, that's what happens. Russia right now is in total disarray, the Russian society, for many reasons. But for me, the most important reasons is the war in Ukraine, the fact that it is not officially acknowledged that there is somehow an involvement from the Russian state with the Russian army in Ukraine. The fact that it is not recognized provokes problems within the Russian society on both sides. On the state, the
provokes
government
problems,
side,
even though there was that survey done last week that said that Vladimir Putin's popularity is at 86%.
But still, when you talk to people, they don't understand. They don't understand why their country at war or not at war. It's very difficult to understand. And the second problem is, and Nemtsov was denouncing this constantly, it was the fact that the sanctions, the economic sanctions due to the war in Ukraine are weakening Russia, of course.
I was just going to point out, just to add to the figure you threw out, the 86% of Russians, you're right. I mean, Putin's popularity is at a near all-time high. It's gotten up to 88% in the past. There was also in that same survey, it was done by the Levada Center, a respected pollster. It also showed that one-third, a little less than one-third, 30% of those surveyed thought Russia is headed in the wrong direction. So there's a little bit of a disconnect between the 86% approval rating of Vladimir Putin and the almost one-third of Russians who say Russia's headed in the wrong direction. I'll just say one quick thing. There's a school of thought, and you'll hear this opinion more and more, and it's even being aired on the few independent Russian media sources today, that the question of who killed Boris Nemtsov is less relevant because the person who just tweeted and said, it's not Putin who did it. There's some people who say, even if Putin didn't do it, and chances are right, Putin didn't give the orders, he isn't the person who actually hired the gun. Putin's still responsible. Why do they think he's still responsible? Because there's a school that will say Putin is the one who has fostered a climate in Russia today which has created an extremely polarized society, a hyper-nationalistic, ultra-nationalistic society where people are divided more than ever against one another, a volatile thing. All you need is a spark to set it off. We talk about the U.S. on this set all the time being divided between Republicans and Democrats. That ain't nothing compared to the polarization we have in Russia today. And for that, if you were going to say Putin's responsible for that, then ultimately, regardless of who the ultimate assassin is, you could say Putin is responsible. He created the climate that made this possible.
All right, I want to put a question to Aliona Popova, because a minute ago, and Yvat was saying, was the aim of this, whoever ordered it, was to intimidate. Are you intimidated?
I would like to say that I disagree, because we're not afraid of it. We're not afraid, we're not scared, because we are all together and we strongly believe that nobody can be our enemy. And I'm totally sure, I agree with the person who was a previous speaker, that it's all about the propaganda. This great, I'm sorry, bullshitting propaganda, because everybody hates everybody. I was growing up in the Soviet Union. When somebody say to anybody that, guys, we can't live in another way, in another country, so start fighting. But I don't remember the case like that, when everybody hates everybody. And for me, this is a case nowadays. How can we, observe the new situation? How can we discuss, not like fighting with each other, but having some, points of gathering us? How can we have some words to each other that, guys, please stop it, because this is a great case. We don't need to kill each other. And it's all about this war in Ukraine. It's all about this crazy propaganda that opposition is the worst thing in the world. And it's all about the nationalistic thing. So we should change it. And I strongly believe in my society, because yesterday when I was in a demonstration, I was standing nearby the people whom I don't know, but it was great people who believes in new Russia, in new society, and who can help each other, like volunteering, like having a new mass media, like having new messages to our society. And this is the case. And it's all about Boris Nemtsov, because,
Aliona Popova, is there a disconnect between people who think like that, who are upwardly mobile, live in Moscow, and people who are outside of Moscow and in other parts of Russia?
Yes, totally. But I'm from a region. I'm from Siberia. I traveled a lot across Russia, and I spoke a lot to a lot of people, and I try to change their opinion about Moscow, about Kremlin, about the way of thinking about Ukraine, and some stuff like that. And if I can do it, I strongly believe that many people around me can do that. And it's all about propaganda. So we have a propaganda, the official one, and we should have our own propaganda. But we don't know how to do that. You know, we don't have a channel in which we can present it our point of view for the whole society. But this is the case, and I totally think that Boris dead because this propaganda. And the case is we need to change it because of Boris Nemtsov.
Michel Grabar, has state media and pro-state media gone too far in whipping up this fervor, this nationalistic fervor?
Probably, and the level of violence is still very high in Russia. So we must not forget that. Even in Paris, people were killed, and we were shocked because it doesn't correspond to our comprehension of a society. But in Russia, from the 90s, the level of violence is very high, and we forgot it. We thought it was just in Ukraine, in Donbass, but it's also in Moscow, in business, and also in politics.
And there's an irony here because, you know, one of the things that I was speaking earlier today to Michel Elchaninov, who just wrote a book called Inside Putin's Head, and he expressed the view. I was asking him about this, you know, what did Yeltsin in his head really think of Nemtsov? And he said one of the things that Vladimir Putin did not like about Nemtsov is the fact that he represented the 90s in a way. Originally, and the 90s was known as a period of disorder, chaos. There were killings, gangland-style killings and free-for-alls in Moscow. We know you lived there during that time. I lived there during that time. It was a violent place, and the thing that Vladimir Putin hates the most is disorder and violence.
To be reminded of that period.
And to be reminded of that period. He came to power trying to be the law and order man that was going to bring order to society, and he struck that deal with the Russian middle class. Well, I'll give you whatever you want, and I will make sure things are orderly. And what we're seeing is really just the opposite of that. We are seeing just about wherever we look, both within Russia and beyond its borders, obviously, violence and chaos and disorder.
But I want to ask about this this whipped up of nationalist fervor, which has corresponded, by the way, to events taking place in eastern Ukraine, the annexation of Crimea and all of that. Is there can Vladimir Putin tone it down, or is it impossible now to turn down the volume on that?
He can turn it down, but what the real problem is that there are some extremists who can, let's say, do what Putin cannot do himself. So there are people who think that it's a good idea to kill representative of liberal parties. Putin is too clever for that, and when you have 86%. In your favor, I don't see the interest of killing a member of the opposition. So, but some people whom he cannot control from the Donbass or among extremists in Russia can do that, because the level of hate is very, very high.
And Nivat, can Vladimir Putin tone it down?
Vladimir Putin can do whatever he wants. But the thing is, what does he want? We don't know. And it's not because Boris Nemtsov died that the war in Ukraine will stop. So everything is connected, but we don't know exactly where are the connections. To me, the most important is to see if in the next days or weeks, we will eventually find out very concretely what happened, who killed him, the inquiry by the police. Will it be the same sort of very foggy results from the inquiry, like for Anna Politkovskaya, my colleague, who was killed in 2006, or will it be clear?
They always get the guys who pull the trigger. They never get the guys who order
behind.
That's a very good test. If we find out who killed him and who was behind,
and what was the motivation?
The motivation. It's a good sign. If it's foggy, it shows that probably the Kremlin is involved or whatever. But so it's a very important test from my point of view too.
They always get the guy who pulls the trigger, don't always get the guy who is the mastermind. Aliona Popova, what are your expectations?
I really don't know. I'm not sure that if somebody just told everybody that, guys, we know who will be the killer, something changed in my country. I don't believe that the exact person would be the real person who shoot or who was a master thinking person. No, I'm not sure about that. But I'm sure that this is a good test for any legislative in my country to say, guys, please stop that. This is the murder of the whole world, like in our country, in the center of Moscow, in a bridge. So we can protect you all. We stop our propaganda, and I'm totally sure that it should be the case for Vladimir Putin to say such kind of words, like, I am the president of my country, and I'm totally sure that I should turn it out, turn it off, stop it. But I'm sure that this is not the point for him.
All right, there is one other side story of this, which is coming out a lot this Monday, and that is his girlfriend who was with him at the time. She's 23 years old. She's Ukrainian, and she said that she gave an interview to Rain TV, an independent television station, saying she could not identify who killed him or the car. And she also says that authorities are preventing her from returning home.
For 3 days, I have been driven in police cars, with guards accompanying me to the investigative committee, where they carry out the investigation with me. They don't explain to me when I will be set free, or what the reason is they are holding me here now.
And Yvette, what's your reaction to that?
I don't know. To me, it's very unclear. How could she give an interview if she is not being allowed, not free of her movement?
We don't even know. I mean, for all we know, the investigators were standing right there by the Skype, watching the whole thing.
Were they watching her, telling her what to say?
She entered the interview very abruptly. She said, "I have to go now. I have to go. I have to go back to the investigative unit or whatever." So you almost got the sense that they were standing at the doorway, beckoning her. It's over. Come with us.
Anyway, she's the only critical witness to what happened.
Maybe I can add one thing. He was killed from behind. So probably she didn't see very well.
She said she didn't see it. Yeah.
But she seems she's totally frightened, shocked, afraid. She's very young. She's a model. She's not an intellectual. She was a quite famous model in Russia or in Ukraine. So the situation for her is very complicated. But maybe the fact that she's from Ukraine, I don't know. Maybe people are
playing with that.
using this fact, but it's not clear at this point.
I'll just add, pertinent to that point, her mother, Anna Doritskaya's mother, a woman named Ina, gave an interview today to a Ukrainian television channel in which she said on Ukrainian television that she's scared that the reason her daughter is being held is they are trying to perhaps set her up, to set her daughter up, to accuse her daughter, to try to tie her in some way to Nemtsov's murder. In other words, there's a clear fear among her family. And you know, there's an eerie parallel here. Do you remember Nemtsov's mother?
Yeah.
Nemtsov told a Russian magazine, Sobesednik, a couple of weeks back before his murder, he said that his mother was scared that that Putin would have him killed. He said, I'm not as scared. She's my mother. Mothers are always scared. I'm less scared. But still, it's eerie. There's a parallel.
But in other words, we're back to propaganda, what we're talking about. It's media propaganda.
He said, she said?
He said, she said, and pro-Russian media versus pro-Ukrainian media saying this, saying that.
As I said, maybe he was very courageous, and he didn't think that he could have been killed, I think. So until this moment happened. And that's the problem, that it can happen.
Boris Nemtsov thought he was protected by his former status as a chinovnik, as someone who had served the Russian government.
Member of
in
the
the
elite,
same way,
political
Anna
elite.
Politkovskaya thought she was protected by her American
It's not enough.
passport.
It's
And
not.
at the same,
it's not
he turned down extra security, by the way. They said, you know, he said at one point in this interview, he said, if they want to kill me, they'll kill me.
Aliona Popova, we're just going to finish. I just want to read you a quote. A few days ago, he told the Financial Times, 3 years ago, we were in opposition. Now we are no more than dissidents. What's going to happen now going forward?
Can you repeat it, please?
Boris
Can't hear
Nemtsov
you
a few
well.
days ago saying, 3 years ago we were in opposition, now we're no more than dissidents.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Because we are in our country like the enemies. If you have another point of view, some people think that you are an enemy. And it's somehow somebody destroy the country from inside, and everybody thinks that if you have another point of view, you are the destroyer. And nobody thinks that if you have your own opinion, you can change it, and you can solve a lot of problems, and they need to help you. This is all about propaganda. And what concerns the dissidents, it was a huge thought about that if you have another point of view, you should move out from the country. If you like, I don't think, the European way of thinking, go to Europe. If you like the American way of thinking, go to America. Everybody will love you over there, but not inside your country. But this is our country, and for me it was a huge sign yesterday, because we all use the Russian flags, the three-color flag, the sign for our legislatives and our president, that this is our country. And we are not the dissidents. We are in our country.
Aliona Popova, I want to thank you for joining us from Moscow. I want to thank Douglas Herbert and Divat. I also want to thank Michel Grabau. Stay with us. Our Media Watch segment is next. Enter James Creedon. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks, Francois. We're taking a look at media reaction in the West, in Western media in particular, to the murder of Boris Nemtsov, starting with the editorial of Le Monde's newspaper in France today. And they say if the past is teaching us any lesson, it is that we should not hope to find out who ordered the killing of Boris Nemtsov. And also, they make the comparison with Anna Politkovskaya in 2006 and said, look, just as we never found out who was behind that, this is probably going to be the situation this time round. And if there will be no criminal judgment, then we can at least pass a moral one. So they then go on to point out the example that you just gave 3 years ago when he spoke to the Financial Times. He described the situation in Moscow as an opposition, and now it has been reduced. Even then, it's been reduced to just a few dissidents, one of whom, of course, can't even go, Alexei Navalny, who is in police custody. Meanwhile, in the Financial Times, Gideon Rachman, also very critical. No outsider can know if Mr. Putin ordered the killing of Boris Nemtsov, but the Russian president and his acolytes undoubtedly created the atmosphere of nationalist paranoia that made his assassination permissible, they say. Meanwhile, cartoonists and online and on social media, etc., are giving their verdict. This is Pierre Kroll, of a Belgian cartoonist in French, and he's depicting Putin here, saying, don't forget the possibility of suicide, of a death by natural causes, of an accident, etc.
An unfortunate accident.
An unfortunate accident, indeed. And of course, as we've been covering extensively, this happened very close to the Kremlin, an extremely secure part of central Moscow, with CCTV cameras absolutely everywhere. So a huge amount of people on social media have been pointing out via photographs, sometimes circled photographs, just the extent to which this area of central Moscow is just absolutely full of CCTV cameras. You can see there lots and lots of images circling said CCTV cameras, and even some cartoons. This on ABC News pointing.
Oh dear!
It's from the Moscow press, showing that, well, they seem to be pointed, many of them, in the same direction and the wrong direction at that critical moment. Meanwhile, the Moscow Times have been sharing the extent to which online many Russians have been finding images and symbols to show their support for Boris Nemtsov, or at least to express their dissatisfaction with what has happened, and the Je suis meme is coming back again for that, Francois. Also, just to finish with this website, we mentioned Anna Politkovskaya. There's a database of deaths of journalists in Russia going back to 1993, 315 in total, critics of the Kremlin for the most part, and non-natural causes. And so that's quite a useful database.
All right, many thanks for that, James Creedon. I want to thank our panel once again. Thank you for being with us here in the France 24 debate.